Welcome to the Packaging Etc. podcast, where we will discuss all things packaging and some things not. We will hear from professionals across all areas of the industry: design, engineering, manufacturing, and many more. We will learn about packaging trends, new technologies, and cutting-edge innovations. This podcast is all about showcasing our favorite parts of the industry, the people, and giving them a platform to share their stories and their knowledge of packaging. Let's take this journey together. And now, your host, Matt Mulvey.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Packaging Etc. podcast. Today, we'll be talking with my good friend and industry colleague, Mr. Leo Frias, sales manager at Fariba Pack. Leo, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, sir. It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Appreciate
absolutely. I feel like it's been a long time coming, even though we just started talking about the podcast idea a few months ago. I feel like this is, kind of coming full circle. So it's nice to have you on and, looking forward to chatting with you. So I guess for the listeners out there, if you wouldn't mind, just start by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you've been, what you do.
Sure. So I started in this industry, I would say almost 11 years ago. And, working with its automation, packaging machinery specifically, mainly targeting pharma, the pharma sectors, but also the nutraceutical, confectionery, snack, and some industrial. Basically, anyone that has a production line that's looking for automation, we can support it, basically. So, yeah, and I can talk a little bit more about how I entered the industry. I came from a totally different industry altogether. A funny story, I'll be very brief, but the funny story goes, this guy from Italy moved in, and he, to my neighborhood, he bought a house, one house next to mine, and we became neighbors. And, we became instant friends. He is from Bologna, Italy, where one of our factories is located. And about 5 years in, he came to me one day. He goes, "Listen, what would it take for you to come work with me?" And the rest is history.
Yeah. And by neighbor and colleague, you're referring to the often imitated, never duplicated Michele, of course.
Mr. Michele Leonardi. He is my friend, my brother first and foremost, and also, as much as he hates for me to call him that, my boss.
Well,
yes.
yeah. All right, fair enough. You two are like a package deal. You don't get one without the other.
A lot of people say that. A lot of, I consider you a friend. Of course, we work together. You're a partner. People that know us, they say the same thing. We had to, separate for about a year. But yeah, I mean, we work very, very well together. We're working together for 11 years. And I'm very grateful to him for giving me the opportunity to join this industry and continue to learn as much as I've learned and continue to learn. There's a lot to learn in this industry.
Yeah, there's so much that I feel like you could spend an entire career and still not learn everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, machinery is one of the, people that are engineers, like, you have an engineering background, our other major team player, Joseph Arena, he's an engineer as well. You both have engineering backgrounds, mechanical engineering, to be specific. And I don't have that background, so for me, it was a little more challenging. to get the hang of it.
Well, I think
especially
you pretty well much got the hang of it, I would say.
I don't know. Sometimes, I think I'm expected to know more than what I know sometimes, which is
Leo, you're in sales. Confidence is king. Be confident, even when you're not.
The confidence comes from. You said something that was key. I think that it's more than selling, right? It's is really trying to create a partnership. You have a business, we have a product that can help grow your business, and through the partnership, we both grow. And we have, I think what reinforces confidence, if you will, it's the product, right? So we have a great product, and we have a great team, and a great manufacturing team, and a great structure here that to back up that product. So I think from that inspires confidence, and when you're out there, talking and giving a presentation, and so on. So yeah.
So it's interesting. I had a little bit of bet with myself coming into this. I said, I know McKelly's going to come up at some point, but I wonder if it's going to, how far into the episode will we get? And we made it less than 2 minutes. So, McKelly, if you're listening, and you better be listening at some point, under 2 minutes, and you already made your grand entrance. So there you go.
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Fariba Pack, do me a favor, just for everybody out there listening that may not be familiar, 30-second sales pitch. What is Fariba Pack exactly?
So Fariba Pack is the branch office of two manufacturing companies. One, Pharmares, specializing in thermoforming and cold forming technology. So we think about thermoforming, think contact lenses, deep draw blisters, medical devices, unit dose cups, suppositories, and so on. And then Fariba, 40 years in industry, manufacturing, cartoning, bundling, case packing, machines, and technology. So between them, we're talking about over 100 years of engineering experience, and automation, and packaging machinery manufacturing, mainly for the pharma sector. And we are the branch office here in North America.
Okay. I've actually been fortunate enough to actually go to the Fariba facility.
Yeah, that's
with
right.
McKelly
That's right.
Many years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I've always been jealous of that.
I have to say, it was an eye-opening and a stomach-expanding experience being in Bologna in general, but going there with the I don't even know what the best way to describe him would be, the unofficial mayor, the U.S. based mayor of Bologna. He's a rock star. He really is.
He's a freaking rock star. He's so modest too. He's a freaking rock star, that guy.
Well, I tell you what, let's stop feeding his ego. Let's move on from that. We can talk about something else. Obviously, confidentiality is key, especially in pharma and med device. But any particular projects that you got going on right now that are kind of blowing your hair back that you're allowed to talk about?
I could talk about the product, but of course, because of the confidentiality, the NDAs in place, we're limited to this. Get too further into the companies and whatnot. Some of them you may be familiar with, some of them you may not be. But currently, we're working on a strip pack machine with metal detection and check weighing and cartoning as well, and tray loader and packer for another big time pharmaceutical company. Think vaccines. We also have finalizing a thermoformer for solid dose, which is solid dose for those who don't know. It's blisters, the tablets that go into a plastic with aluminum foil. You pop them open. So yeah, we're pretty busy right now with working with these kind of technologies. Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned before, not starting out in the packaging industry and
Mm-hmm.
Not having an engineering background, which obviously is not necessarily a precursor for getting into the industry, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely pose some challenges and whatnot. But understanding that you could spend an entire career and not learn everything, just with how quickly, especially nowadays, technology seems to advance. It's like
Mm-hmm.
every couple of months, every year, there are major advancements, and the packaging machinery industry is no different. As part of the questionnaire that you had filled out, you had mentioned
Yep.
artificial intelligence, and obviously people are talking a lot about AI and applications in society and social media and how it's going to impact everyday life. But how do you see artificial intelligence really impacting the packaging machinery industry? Where do you think that's headed?
Well, I think so. It would really depend on the technology. There are certain technologies that incorporate AI into the machine itself. For example, you have let's say tablet inspection, capsule inspection machines. They incorporate AI into the machine with deep learning algorithms, pattern recognition, and so on.
Okay.
Right.
What about stuff like equipment troubleshooting, upset conditions, leveraging AI technology for supplanting the typical, hey, my machine's down, you need to get a technician on site today. Taking up some of that space and maybe getting shortening the amount of time it takes you to get your line back up and operational. Obviously, downtime is costly for everybody, for different organizations, different types of products, more so. Do you think AI could help out in that arena as well?
That's a good question. I think so. There's always going to be a human element involved. Our machines, all of our machines, are equipped with remote access capabilities, right? So if there's anything that goes wrong that our local technicians cannot address, the factories can log on. All you have to do is provide the Wi-Fi, and they can troubleshoot it from the factory from Italy directly with our local engineer there supporting.
Okay.
So at that point, yeah, I think that the factories will need to make that decision on how. But clearly, I mean, AI is growing in such a way that I foresee that being a factor. I do.
Okay. Going back to the questionnaire,
Mm-hmm.
and I had mentioned before in our call that you had used a phrase that I felt was kind of interesting. You had used the words "behind the pharmacy shelf" and
Yeah.
trying to communicate everything, and obviously everything is a pretty big topic, but everything that goes into getting a product, pharmaceutical, medical device combination product, from ideation to that pharmacy shelf. So that behind the pharmacy shelf, I felt like would be a great podcast name. So I feel like that's going to be the name of our episode here. But what is it? Obviously we don't have hours, but what is it that you would want to convey to the listeners? Hopefully there are multiple listeners by now of the podcast. As far as conveying that message behind the pharmacy shelf as of what goes on, the magic that you guys deliver.
Yeah, that's a very, again, a very good question and an observation. The average person will go into Walgreens or CVS, and they don't think twice. They don't know the world of automation that happens behind that final product being delivered and put on that shelf. Everything from whether it's eye drops, whether it's a nasal spray, that needs to go into a carton. That bottle before once it gets filled, it needs to get labeled. There's a whole bunch of verifications that need to happen before that. If you have a literature, that literature needs to be of course automated into the carton. There's a barcode that needs to be verified, and so on. The variable data on the carton needs to be printed and then verified with the camera. Barcode needs to be verified. I mean, there's a whole lot of automation and verifications that go behind a final product. And then, let's say I use liquid filling, for example, but it could be liquid filling, it could be a suppository, it could be a contact lens, anything that's going into a carton or a tablet's going into a bottle. There's a world of different type of automation that takes place before that final product gets shipped. And how does it get shipped, right? So let's say this, from the carton to let's say a bundler, if it needs to be bundled or wrapped, to a case packer, whether it's a bottle that's going into a top load case packer or a carton going into a side load case packer. Then we also have palletization technology and equipment. If that case then goes onto a pallet, and there's a pattern of schematics on that pallet that the machine would adhere to, depending on what we call a recipe. So all of that happens before it gets to then that pallet. Depending on how many pallets you can stack up. Then that gets wrapped around with the wraparound station with the plastic wrap, and then it gets shipped off to the world. So again, yeah, I'm always, when I walk into Walgreens and I see people, buying their stuff, and just they have no idea. So it's very interesting, when you do explain to people the the world of automation that happens behind that.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept. I think it extends obviously well beyond pharmaceutical and the heavily regulated industries. But packaging in general. I studied packaging at Rutgers, and I was originally in civil engineering. I had recently, at that point, given up on my dream of the New York Yankees needing me to play third base for them. Although I still, even nowadays, I still hold out hope. Maybe they'll give me a call.
You and me both.
Yeah. So I switched from civil into packaging, and the initial thought that I had when I started learning about packaging was, I guess I'm going to make boxes for a living. And it wasn't until that light bulb, I like to call it a light bulb moment. And that happened for me very early on, where you realize just how much goes into, you can spend all the time in the world developing the best product on the market, but unless you have the proper packaging wrapped around it, from the old definition of protect, inform, transport, and sell, going back to my old textbook years. Without the proper packaging around it, you don't have a product. And how many companies are involved in getting that product out on the shelf at the stores, to the point where when I really started to understand the full scope of that, when I would go grocery shopping, what should take me an hour could take me 4 hours, because I would get stuck in the aisles and I'd just be staring at things on the shelf and imagining, hey, how did they, that's a bi-injected cap. That's a really neat, that's something new. I haven't seen that before. And then wondering, how do they make that? I wonder who makes it. How many cavities is it? Let me pop the cap off. And it would take me forever to get through the grocery store. My wife will not go grocery shopping with me because of that reason, because she loses me in the aisles because I'm constantly stopping and looking at things. So it's that light bulb moment for what happened for me, and I love talking to people that really don't understand the packaging industry, and when I finally explain it to them and I get to see them experience that light bulb moment, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. I have to agree. And just to add to that, when you watch a movie and you see the credits and you see everything that goes behind that, everything that goes behind making a movie, all these entities, all these different things, so there's a similarity, in packaging, because if it's, let's say it's a suppository, we have the company that provides the film, the aluminum film, the company that provides the PVC, the glycerin, right? The formulation of the glycerin. Then within our own machines, we I think we pretty much do like 99% of everything in house. With our machine shops. But cartoning, the buyer needs to then work with current suppliers, with leaflet suppliers, with the people that are with the glue unit, with the check wing, and the serial. If this is a serialized project, serialization is another topic. It basically means you're tracking and tracing the product from inception to pretty much reduce the risk of counterfeit, which apparently there's a lot of in the pharma industry. So there's a lot of players. It's not just the machines. It's a wide range of different players that are involved to bring this whole thing to fruition. That people don't think about. Yeah,
there's a lot of careers, a lot of people feeding their families off of just getting that package to the end. Well, not even the end user, but to the company that's going to eventually use it to assemble the final package and product and get it out on the market. So yeah, it's really kind of interesting. I enjoy those light bulb moments when I get to see someone experience that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
So, obviously, before we started this episode, you and I were catching up for a few minutes, and you had mentioned that we met at a trade show. That was I'm assuming that was Interfex, right, in New York, I think. I
That
think it
was
was
Interfax of 2015.
2015. What do you have notes?
I remember
All
because
right,
that's my.
your memory is better than mine, but yeah, that timing does line up right. So, I have my own, I'll call it bucket list of trade shows.
Mhm.
I've never been to Interpack. I've heard Interpack is massive. I want to say it's even bigger than Pack Expo Chicago, which I've been to multiple times.
Yeah.
But Interpack would definitely be on my list. What would you say is your favorite trade show? What's the best one out there?
So that's a good question. So I haven't been to Interpack either or Akima. McKelly, our rock star, he's the one that takes the lead there. But I think I'm going to be. I think I'll be going to the next German trade show coming up. That's a good question. I'm a New Yorker, New York native. So I think I have the most fun in New York. I'm from New York. I do a lot of the planning, a lot of the restaurant reservations for the after show dinners with our partners and friends, which it's a big part of what we do.
Oh yeah, you're the
And
social butterfly. I get it.
for traffic, traditionally it's Chicago.
Mhm.
But I'm torn between Interfax and Pack Expo. Where I've had Interfax, I have a sweet spot because that's where I met Jeff Davis. That's where I met you. That's where I met Scott Camo. That's where I met a lot of my friends and partners that I've worked with over the years when I first started in this industry. So I think I would say Interfax in New York City.
Okay. I guess I have a little bit of I guess it's an anti-bias, home field anti-bias. I guess I just kind of take New York for granted, and I guess because on they're not necessarily on the same level. I mean, the Javits is obviously not McCormick Place,
No.
as far as size and attendance and whatnot. I can usually knock out Interfex or East Pack, and I can do it in a half a day or 3/4 of a day, depending upon how many vendor meetings I have set up. But Chicago, last year I was there. It took me 3 full days. I actually had to extend my trip because I was
Huge.
going to run out of time. I didn't plan accordingly. And 3 years ago when I went, I was there all 4 days. And
Yeah.
and it was value added all 4 of those days. And let me tell you, I was exhausted by the end of it. My feet were killing me. But the amount of people I was able to meet with and the amount of technology I was able to absorb and conversations had and contacts made, Chicago, Pack Expo Chicago is my number one. It's my favorite far and away.
Yeah, it's hard for me, because Chicago also. I mean, we have so much fun in Chicago. We have our pretty much our own dedicated. We have our own personal chef,
Hmm.
Chicago, and one of the most celebrated Italian restaurants in downtown Chicago, which is Volare. And Michele Lenardi, our rock star, he's personal friends with the head chef and the person that pretty much runs that restaurant. And I think you've been there with us, I believe.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go there with you
And
last fall.
yeah, and
Phenomenal meal.
it's just an experience. He comes out, we eat stuff that's not even on the menu.
Hmm.
So it's yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. It's tough. That's a tough one. I mean, we have a great time in both, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, going to Volada every day, with our friends and partners. It's just tough. It's a tough one for me. I love them both. It's a toss up.
So talking about Chicago, all the years I've been going out there for that show, this past year is the first year I made it out to I don't know if I told you, but Big's Mansion. It's
Mm.
one of the cigar lounges out there, and
We were trying to make it out there
yeah,
together, but I was flying out first thing in the morning. It's gonna be
really,
impossible.
really neat place. I wish I had more time to enjoy it, but they have an upstairs that you can pay for a day pass. It's not cheap, but I have a really good feeling that it's well worth it to go and experience that place.
Yeah.
But even just going in the general public location downstairs in the basement, really neat little walk-in humidor, and
Mm.
the place was packed when I was there. Lots of people. Some people knew each other, some people didn't, and everybody was friendly and hanging out and enjoying a good cigar. So definitely going to be
we have
on my
to.
list of places to go visit regularly when I'm in Chicago.
That's something that we definitely need to coordinate much better
Yeah.
next time we're there together,
Hmm.
because that again, that's a passion that we share. Um, and it's something that I really love, that I really enjoy uh, to do. And I'm very passionate about cigars myself, so as you know.
Yep. Yep. So
Yeah.
you mentioned also that you're a bit of a foodie and that you like to cook. So just out of curiosity, what would you say is what's your number one dish? Like if somebody came to you and said, Leo, you have a chance for $1 million, but you have to cook one dish, and it has to impress. What's
Wow.
your go-to? What are you making?
Wow. That's that's tough. It's very, I mean, I'll be as brief as possible, but I was the last out of my family, my siblings, to learn how to cook. I was spoiled growing up, and so I was the last one to learn how to cook. And when I got the hang of it, and then it became therapeutic for me. Minus some really disastrous accidents that we could talk about later. Funny as hell, but I don't know. You know, I do a mean seafood linguine. Um, uh, uh, you know, uh, I do a very, very good seafood linguine. Of course,
Okay.
linguine very al dente with a combination of different seafoods. You know, I cook it in a certain way with garlic, butter, olive oil, lemon, with a prosecco reduction. Um, it's just one of my favorite dishes to go to if I want to impress someone. And also, I do this pigeon peas and rice with five different type of peppers, red onion and garlic, chopped up, minced very finely, and cooked into the rice with the pigeon peas. And chicken. I love cooking chicken. Chicken is a big part of my diet because of how lean it is and high protein. So I love to cook chicken and steak. I love to cook. I love to cook steak. But if I had to impress someone, it would probably be my seafood linguine. If
Okay.
I had to,
Okay.
you know. But again, I like to cook rice and beans. I come from a Latino background, and I love to cook the traditional Latin dishes as well.
So I don't know exactly which demographic it comes from, but the braised beef barbacoa.
Barbacoa, yeah, that's a Mexican, I would
Okay.
say.
Is that okay?
I would say, yeah, yeah, it's a popular, very very popular dish. Yeah, you like that?
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Actually, the first time I ever had it was I want to say it was a Cuban restaurant
Yeah.
in Hoboken, New Jersey, years ago.
Hmm.
And I was a little out of my element. I'd never really been to a Cuban restaurant before, so
Oh,
I'm
you got to
not
go with me.
I'm not a really adventurous eater. I'm like a meat and potatoes guy, and give me a steak and mashed potatoes and a glass of scotch, and I'm happy. So I had to find something on the menu that I would go for it, and the Cuban sandwich is always a nice go to, but I'm like I want to try something new, and
Hmm.
the barbacoa it sounded interesting, and when I ordered it, I was blown away. So, but I
Great
was
dish.
never really sure what cuisine it actually came from.
Yeah, it's a great dish. I
Yeah.
mean, listen, with these countries, Mexico, Cuban, the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Argentina, you have Peru, Colombia, Ecuador. I mean, you have all these that have their own specialty dishes that are just amazing. I've been fortunate because I love to eat. I love to eat foods from different countries within Latin America, and of course, of course, one of my best dining experiences in Bologna, Italy, in Florence. So,
Yeah.
but
Same.
yeah, I mean, yeah, at that point, you could drop the mic there. I mean, it's Bologna for me Bologna for me is truly the food capital of the world, in my opinion. I mean, Florence comes very, very close, also very, very good. They're known for their Florentine steaks, but Bologna for me just takes the cake.
It's interesting that you phrase it that way, because the way I describe, now granted, I've been to Bologna twice, fortunate enough to go twice. But the way I would describe it is Italy is the food capital of the world. Bologna is the food capital of Italy. That's my personal. That's the world according to Matt. But that's just kind of how I explain it to people that have not made it yet.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, you have a point. I mean, Italy. Before it was Italy, I think Italy became Italy in the mid 1800s. I can't remember when exactly. It became Italy. They all had their own traditions and their own. So it's just Italy itself. You raise a good point. I mean, it's Italy. I agree with you. Is the food capital of the world. And Bologna is the food capital of Italy. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I never saw it that way before.
I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would argue, but I'll die on that. I'll die on that hill.
I don't know. I think McKelly won't argue that.
Well, I think he's a little biased. Speaking of which, if I had to answer that question, favorite dish to cook, I would actually say I always grew up having the big, Sunday family dinners at 2:00 and, going to grandma and grandpa's, and she'd always make her Sunday gravy, and she'd have a giant pot of meatballs on the stove. And I every once in a while, and unfortunately not often enough, I like to try to recreate that. And, I feel like I'm doing my ancestors proud. So I would probably put together, macaroni and Sunday gravy, garlic bread, chicken cutlets.
Making me hungry.
Oh yeah, I'm getting hungry myself actually. But that's a production. That's like an entire day of cooking, and it's a labor of love. But I enjoy it. I probably have a little Frank Sinatra playing in the background, just for added effect.
You can't be Frank, man. No. You can't beat him. I'll tell you a funny story. So people always ask me, like, what's my favorite Italian food? And I have two. I have tortellini nel brodo, which is, tortellini pasta in the broth, and tagliatelle ragu, which is a thicker type of pasta with a ragu. There, the ragu is like a meat sauce. It's a meat sauce. They call it ragu there. And I had the pleasure, and McKelly, I'm sorry, I just got to bring this up because, and I'm not just saying this because that's my brother, but I've eaten tortellini nel brodo in, I don't know. I mean, I've been traveling to Italy several times a year for over 11 years. Okay, so eating in different places and different restaurants, amazing restaurants all over Italy, all over Bologna and Florence and Cervia and Milan and so on. And I was fortunate enough to spend a day at McKelly's mom's and McKelly's parents' house, and she made tortellini nel brodo, and I gotta tell you, it's, and I'm not just saying this because to blow smoke up my brother's behind.
Yeah.
It was the best tortellini nel brodo that I've ever tasted in my life, hands down, to this day. And I've had since then, and it's hands down. She made the best tortellini nel brodo that I've ever had, before and after. And she started with a bowl, and she goes, "You want more?" I'm like, "Yep." And next thing you know,
is that a question? Really?
She just brought the pot. I'm like, that's a good idea. I must have ate half the pot, if not the whole pot.
Well, folks, there you have it from Leo himself. If you ever had the chance, McKelly's mother makes the best.
She's hands down, man. Yeah. That amazing, just an amazing cook for sure. And then you can't forget the grappa, because then that I love grappa. You know how much we love grappa.
Yeah, well, grappa doesn't love me, and so we'll save that story for another time. Maybe another episode down the road.
Another podcast we could talk about tequila and grappa.
Well, no, so you're launching me right into my next question, and I'm gonna take my chances because I know we don't have hours here. But did I hear something about you talking like a bucket list idea, or are you actually doing this? Talking about launching your own tequila?
I'm not doing it right now. It's something that I've been, so I've been very, very passionate about tequila for the past, I don't know, almost 14 years, I would say. Mm-hmm. learning about it and appreciating it, the right way. And I'm like, man, it's something that I would, given the opportunity, again, I'm working on that. I'm working on some things. It's a few years down the road, but I do have I have a plan to try to make something out of it. I have someone that's going to work with me on a business plan. I have some friends of mine that are ready to invest. And my family, like my daughter and my future son-in-law, they're very they're behind me on that.
Very supportive. Yeah, good.
They're very supportive. So it's something that it's in the pipeline. It's in the pipeline. I think tequila for me is I learned. I didn't learn it immediately. I would say with the last 4 or 5 years, I learned that it's pretty much the healthiest spirit you can drink if you're gonna enjoy a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It is the healthiest. I'm also a big Scotch guy. I love Scotch. I love bourbon.
Well, now you're talking my language.
Yep. I want to introduce you. Abelard. You know Abelard.
No, I don't.
I'm gonna hook you up. I'm gonna hook you up with a nice Abelard 16. It's one of my favorite scotches on the planet. And of course I love bourbon. I used to be a big vodka guy. I love spirits. I like to appreciate the spirits. Again, responsibly, because I like to really learn the different notes, different flavors. I really want to take in and learn about the different expressions and how these different notes settle on your palate and what you're experiencing. What is that you're tasting at the front end, at the back end? What's lingering? How the profile is it dry? Is it velvety? Is it creamy? These kind of things. The different notes of vanilla or custard or these kind of things. I really, that's what interests me about enjoying a good spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But tequila is at the top of my list.
Well, listen, you're the first person that educated me that tequila isn't just a $20 bottle of Jose Cuervo and
oh yeah,
a shot licking salt off your hand and that was the only way, or mixing it in a Long Island iced tea or something. So I never really appreciated fine tequila until you came around. So you opened my eyes.
You're welcome. It's funny. A quick note on that. This. The reason tequila. The reason people drank tequila with salt and and lime is to deter the taste of it. Mm-hmm. Right. And most people, college kids, tequila has, you associate tequila with college students getting drunk and doing shots and all that.
Getting crazy and letting loose. Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. But that's the entirely wrong reason to be drinking anything, period. Right. But a real good tequila, you don't disturb that with anything. A good quality tequila is like a good quality scotch. You're not gonna do rum and coke with a scotch with a Macallan 15, mm-hmm. or with a Glen Mirage, 18-year-old, or a Glenfiddich, or pick any of the higher end. And I don't like peaty scotches. I like full body flavor scotches. McKelly likes the Lagavulin 16-year-olds, and that's one of his favorites. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Taliskers and the Port Ellens, I'm more of a Macallan 15,
yep.
Glen Mirage, Glenfiddich.
I'm right there with you. That and I grew up. My background is Irish and Italian, and so the Irish side, there was, I won't say copious amounts of it, but there was Irish whiskey around every once in a while, and so I kind of grew up around that. So I'll enjoy a nice glass of Jameson Black Barrel. That's a go-to for me. Macallan 12, okay, Macallan 15. Some on the Scotch side. Mm-hmm. My My stepson bought me years ago, bought me a bottle of Redbreast, which I had never heard of before.
Wow, Redbreast, yeah.
And you want to talk about eye opening? That's a nice,
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah.
a nice Irish whiskey. I enjoy that one as well. But
Oh
interestingly
yeah.
enough, a couple of years ago, family vacation to Ireland. We were touring around the island, and one of our last nights there, we stayed in a town called Carrick-on-Shannon, which is an area where we thought our family may have come from. We really kind of lose our records going back that far. And I was talking to the bartender in the hotel where we were staying, and he says, "Oh yeah, there's a whole hill of Mulvies, 2 towns over in Drumshanbo." I'm not gonna even try to imitate the Irish brogue because I'm horrible at it. But he literally said there's a whole hill of Mulvies 2 towns over in Drumshanbo. Come to find out, Drumshanbo has a distillery. They make a gunpowder gin, which is absolutely delicious. I do enjoy like a nice gin and tonic. But they also make an Irish whiskey, and that's actually a pretty good whiskey as well. So I have a bottle of each of those in my bar downstairs.
Oh no, we gotta crack that one day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so parting question for you.
Shoot.
I'm taking my chances on this one again. What number one cigar, number one tequila? What do you got?
Wow. I typically don't have a favorite of anything because I love the experience of learning and discovering new cigars. I could tell you at the top of my list of cigars. We'll start there. Man, that's tough. If I'm going to say what's accessible to me that I can go and buy here in the States, that's not contraband, that's a tough one. But if I had to give you one, it would be the Patron Aniversario. That line of cigars, Patron Aniversario. It's a Nicaraguan. It's from leaf to binder to wrapper to tobacco. Everything is from that house, from the Patron house in Nicaragua, and they've pretty much perfected the art of construction. And the flavor is amazing. Again, it's tough because I also love the Opus X from Arturo Fuente, which is a Cuban seed Dominican cigar maker. Again, it's all theirs. There's no, it's very common these days, which is okay. It's very common these days for a lot of cigar makers to have a hybrid cigar with a Connecticut leaf with a Cameron wrapper, or the tobacco from, and it's common. Not that they're bad. Liga Privada also, it's a Nicaraguan brand, and they also have one of my favorites, Liga Privada #9. So it's among them three. Those are my top three. I have to give you top three. I can't give it. I would say my top.
All right, fair enough.
And then tequila, it's a little easier because I've had an opportunity so far. I'm more of a Blanco person. So tequila, you have the Blancos, which is no barreling, there's no aging. You have the Reposados, which is this is some barreling, 3 to 6 months, depending on the humidor and the process that they're using. And you have the Añejo, which is 8 months, 12 months or more. I'm more on the Blanco side because I love that earthiness, the pepperiness, the minerality, and the purity of the agave. So I tend to go more for that expression, which is the Blanco. And on that note, for me, there's a Blanco, which is that has gained so much popularity these days that they're very, very hard, that they're scarce. They're very, very hard to find. And if you can find it, it's marked up like 3 times. It's Fortaleza. And Fortaleza is, for me, is king as far as the Blancos are concerned. And then, of course, you have Ocho. And then Ocho is another line of tequila, which is amazing, from the Camarena family. Again, these tequilas are additive-free, very natural, yeast, agave, and water. And then they have their traditional ways of processing it. Then Don Fulano, which is an amazing tequila, 140 years tradition on making tequilas. So, but if I had to choose one for the sake of choosing one is Fortaleza. It's the best.
I know you could go on for hours, so it was
Oh,
dangerous
we
getting
can
into
talk.
that so late in the episode.
We could
but
talk for hours. I try to sum it up as
yeah,
brief as I could.
I appreciate that.
But you know what? That means that we could set up another podcast to talk about this.
Well, we talked about that. I think number 2, we're going to have to find a cigar lounge, and we'll record over.
That'll be amazing, and then we can even discuss about what we're experiencing, the kind of cigars we're smoking, and all that. What we're pairing it with, because that's another thing that we can discuss. What I like to pair my cigars with, So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sounds like a plan. I like it. Well, Leo,
All
listen,
right,
I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much. It's been great chatting with you. Definitely have to do this again sometime. But for now,
I'm humbled.
We'll say goodbye. And again, thank you everyone for listening, and take care.
I'm humbled. Thank you so much, and I look forward to doing this again. You let me know when and where, and I'm there.
Will do. Thank you so much. Be good.
Have a good night, my friend. Thank you.
Too. Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Packaging Etc. podcast. We hope you enjoyed the content and maybe learned something new. If you have ideas for future guests or topics, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to send a connection request on LinkedIn or visit www.precisionengsolutions.com and use the contact form. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us once more on the next episode of the Packaging Etc. podcast. Until then,